Hello and welcome. I am Allison Lane. I am a marketer for authors and people should be. And from that goes from, from everything from getting an agent to a publishing deal to marketing, getting ready for your book launch. This is 25 years of running marketing and PR for global companies until I was like, that 25 years is long enough. It is time to work with people who are personally invested. And so this is now what I do. It's my full-time jam, and it is my honor to also be the host of the creative nonfiction community, which only works because you guys, because it's a community, because we're all here for each other. And you can always get in touch with me. You can DM me. You can send me an email. You can post in the community. You can send a note to one of the other moderators. So there's Mona Mijas and Candace Cahill, whose book comes out next month. And, or, get in touch in all the places. Okay, we're open for business. Now, before we get into everything, if you're new around here, this is how the community works. So we have two rules. Ask for what you need and share what you know. It's just two. And the third is, please just be cool. Nobody likes a jerk. And the rule is you are not allowed to be a jerk, because if you are, I boot you. and that's the rule. If you see someone being a jerk, you can DM me and I will boot them. There's no warning ahead of time, because this is the warning, because it's part of the rules. Tell a friend. You can share this group. Best thing is to share the URL, because if you invite them through Facebook, it looks like they want to be invited, but they didn't answer the membership questions, which means I decline or Mona declines, because nobody has time for that. So make sure you get these Zoom links for the events and webinars and everything. I'm sure you did, because you registered for the login information. You'll always get reminders 2 days before, 1 day before, and 1 hour before. You'll get the replay of this direct to your inbox. We don't record the compassionate critique sessions because they're private. Because they're, it's your personal work. But you know what? You got to show up if you're going to improve, and really show up for the webinars. We have a bunch of expert guests, as well as me laying down how to pitch media, what to put on your website, what should be in your bio, all the things. I have done 65 webinars for this community, all free, all because, it feeds my heart. So let me launch into some why you guys are here. Today's guest is a chameleon. She's a unicorn, maybe. She's a standout. She's the author of 5 books, including the game-changing, this is me being Vanna, including the game-changing publishing guide, before and after the book deal, which everyone should actually get. And P.S., I'm getting all of her books today. And most recently, the memoir, which Be Still My Crying Heart, The Year of the Horses. Seriously. Now, The Year of the Horses has been chosen by the Today Show as one of the best reads for mental health. So highly recommend, because we all like our mental health. Also, Vanity Fair has given it a big fat kiss twice this summer. Twice. Vanity Fair. Okay, so this book has been put in the same class as Beyonce. And just in case you didn't understand me before, our guest is the author of 5 books. 2 are nonfiction, 3 are fiction. They're actually 5 genres. And she's a writing coach. She's an educator. She helps people hold on the joy of writing and creating instead of just turning creators into just brands. And it takes all the color out of everything, right? Her essays, her and articles have been published everywhere. Name a place, yes, there too. She's appeared in the New York Times and the Guardian, and her short story, "This Is Not Your Fault," was turned into an Audible original. She didn't say that. I'm telling you this. She's part of the literati. She's like she's in now. So she's rubbing elbows with Ann Perry and Edward Lewis and P.S. I don't know if you saw this. Danny Shapiro blurbed her book. Danny effing Shapiro on the cover of this book. I don't know if I could be a bigger fan. Welcome.
Thank you. What an introduction.
I just am putting the emphasis on the words that matter.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Allison and Mona, for helping out today. I'm excited to get to know you all a little bit and honored to be here.
Well, we're so happy to have you here. We have a record crowd, and so many people are getting the replay, hundreds of people are getting the replay, and they will be asking for it. So don't you worry. We're going to dive in and make sure that we have plenty of time for questions throughout. Yes. Make sure that everyone, that you're putting your questions in the chat, because we will get to them. And if we don't during our lifetime, we will after the fact. Before we get started, let's just establish, Courtney, that you have had a 20-year career in branding and marketing. Yes. So can you just walk us through how that factored in to you finding and growing your writerly voice?
Yeah, I would love to. I think it's called earning an income, which is, yes, it's very hard to do as a writer. So when I was a young girl, I was really lucky. I went to a very good school, a private school, all girls. It's called Greenwich Academy. And to date, this is something I think about a lot, because I now have a daughter, but I grew up with a Wall Street dad and instead married a French filmmaker. So we can't afford to send her to some fancy school. She's in public school, love public school. But I will say, I look back and I think that I really developed as a writer in middle school and upper school and high school, not necessarily college, because I had teachers who believed in me from a really young age. So thank you to any teachers who are on the line. What you're doing matters. I first started making books when I was just 7 years old. Here's my first one, The Curious Little Horse. I thought that this was my handwriting, but no, it's my teachers who helped me with an about the author section. So the reason I bring this up is because from a very early age, I was fortunate enough to be buttressed, supported, encouraged by amazing teachers. So I kind of came out the gate, again, came from a privileged background, so was very much raised like, if you dream it, you can do it. Everything's accessible, and that's something I was lucky to have. But I also had teachers believe in me. So I went into college not thinking that I had to do certain things to be a writer. I felt like I already was a writer. I'd been publishing in, small magazines and had started copywriting for newspapers and things like that. And so I set about kind of learning everything I could about the world and engaging my other passions, and just assuming if I kept reading and writing that, this whole thing would happen. So I majored in comparative literature and French translation. I moved to France for most of my 20s. And that's where I started to get into marketing, branding, and trend forecasting. Don't have an MFA, never pursued one. I'm lucky that I get to teach at MFA programs now, which is sort of a beautiful turn of events.
They're lucky.
It's sweet. But yeah, I like, I mean, as you'll see from my published work, I really like being given homework assignments, right? I'm a Virgo. So I love copywriting because some client would say, we need to write, we have a new electric car coming out and the target audience is mothers, go write something in that tone of voice. Or we have a hemorrhoid pill coming out and so I did that for years and years. And first of all, the people at these branding agencies are some of the funniest, smartest, and well-read that I've ever met. And they're not competitive the way that writers out of MFA programs are, because they don't have time to finish their novels. They're just trying to save money. And then one day they'll write their novel, and also the pay was just pretty good. It was good. You have to work all the time, but the pay's good. And all around me, I was watching my friends start to adjunct and whatnot and earn $18,000 a year before taxes, and they're trying to live in New York City. And so I just kept my butt in the marketing and branding world, and was thus able to support myself, pay for going to writing conferences, things like Bread Loaf, which cost a fortune if you've attempted to go, or traveling to AWP. I was really able to support myself through the branding and marketing, and still fall back on that when I need a little extra help. So yeah, my specialty is in cosmetics, beauty, and the wellness space. I've worked as a corporate namer for a long time, and all of these skills have helped me in my own fiction writing, because I like to write about what consumerism and capitalism does to people, specifically Americans. So it helps to see behind the scenes in branding. I like satirizing corporate culture. And then it's really helpful for me as kind of a book coach, and I call it query doula, helping people with their queries, because I can really help writers step outside of this almost visceral connection they have to their work and see it through the eyes of a bookseller or an editor, and think about it from a marketing standpoint, and also teach some tips and tricks for marketing your material a little bit better. So yeah, I'm very proud of my marketing background, actually. We've had a good time.
Seriously, it's so funny, just not funny, haha, but funny, like, that I ran PR I worked in men's fashion and Unilever, and on like, the
Works for them a lot.
Real Beauty and Dove, and launched like men's grooming, the things I had to say in radio interviews about grooming below the Mason-Dixon.
Sure.
And I think I still have some guy who would go on a date with me in Kansas City, like the, shock jock.
Yeah.
And all of that time, I was like, gosh, this is such a good experience, because I can pitch anything.
Yeah.
And I often say, so this is, I ran PR at Burt's Bees and marketing. And so I often say, like, hey, this is a product. It's lip balm. The lip balm is the product, but Burt's Bees is the brand. People love the Burt's Bees. They don't love this product. Your book is a product and you are the brand. And you have to know that your next book is also another product. And so we need to love you. And it's part of the building an author ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, I believe unfortunately, that's mostly true. When I work with writers, I try to help them to have half of their brain and heart believe that, and then the other half really operates as an artist, because thankfully there's still some examples of people out there like Jonathan Franzen, who notably notoriously not on social media, does very few speaking events, just wants to be left the hell alone and write his books. Now he can, because he's got very successful, but yeah, it's not something like, I'm not overwhelmed with joy at the fact that writers have to be brands now. I think it's too much to ask, but I'm aware of it, and I know how to, I try to play the game. And so I like educating people about that, and then telling them, like, okay, if you want to disregard all that and do your thing, do it. Just know in the back of your head that this is what you're up against, and then I think people can be a little bit more empowered to make the right decisions for, what writing is going to look like for them. Because a lot of people, they just don't have it in them to start newsletters and manage TikToks and all these
Right.
freaking things, and that's why I'm a big fan of self-publishing. Sometimes I think sometimes that can absolutely be the right vehicle for storytelling. And we have Colleen Hoover as a beautiful example right now to show that gatekeepers aren't always right with their rejections, and that the readers know what they want. And sometimes the readers, the gatekeepers are actually really, really bad at trend forecasting. Like I said, I used to work in trend forecasting in the early aughts, and I did all the trend forecasting for L'Oreal at a certain point. And I've actually, I love agents, I love editors, but they're awful at predicting trends because they only look at what has worked in the past and never think about, regardless of past sales, what could come out. I think a lot about the vampire trend, which honestly, when the seas are rising and war is rampant, like vampire chronicle, this is natural that kind of genre would become popular. And I've heard a lot of editors say, like, who could have predicted that Yetis and werewolves would be next? I'm like,
and you're like me, right?
A lot of people could have, if you would ask like
yeah.
actual marketers and brand. Now, have you, in maybe 2001, had you sold werewolf romance? Okay, maybe not, but just think ahead. So, yeah, very engaged advocate for, if you keep getting rejections from the gatekeepers, sometimes they're right, sometimes they are right, and your writing's not there yet, or it's an offensive topic or whatever. But sometimes you just got to go beat the drum yourself, forge your path, and find your people. We're not all going to become Colleen Hoover, obviously, if we self-publish, but honestly, most books are selling so few copies right now. You'd be shocked. Like I was working with a writer the other day, and they were saying, oh, I'm like embarrassed, I self-published and my book only sold 2,500 copies. And I was like, girl, oh my God, that's actually amazing. Books right now, lead titles at huge, huge imprints with all the weight and clout of Penguin Random House behind them, are not even breaking 5,000 copies their first like 3 or 4 months on sale. So I, told her, like, that is something to shout to the rooftops. Those are amazing numbers, really amazing numbers. I have a friend, lead title at a huge imprint, her first week on sale, book tour, the whole thing, her first week on sale, including pre-orders, she sold 200 copies. So she's being flown around in an airplane, by her publisher. So sometimes you need to hear these insider stories to pick your chin up.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I think it's still true that people see authors as they're kind of star-studded. Like they do want access a little bit, and it really is up to you what you share. You don't have to share anything. You don't have to be active in social media. You can do events or not do events, whatever. But there's like a little bit of a halo. Even I'm fangirling, and here we are having a chit chat.
Well, I think it's I don't mean to downplay the enormous achievement it is to get an agent and be published anywhere, but especially in America where it's more competitive. It's a huge achievement, and it's a great privilege, to have an editorial house choose to put your book out. But, unfortunately, I don't think it's true anymore that you can decide to do nothing. Most debut authors, if they've managed to get a book deal, will be expected to do quite a lot, and you got to have something absolutely incredible that's somehow going to sell itself if you're going to come to the table and say, I will not do social media and I won't do events. I basically, won't do anything. It's, you have to sell this book. We are no longer in a world where the publishers sell the book. Unfortunately, the authors do almost everything. I mean, depending on who you're with, you'll get a certain amount of support, which could be financial or administrative. But, you know, in many cases, we even have to do our own event management for managing for
Yeah,
really. So it's a tremendous, it's hard work. It often feels great, especially if the book starts to break through. But I do think that, I think when you look at authors that you know are publishing and are quite active as literary citizens, what you should be impressed by beyond what they're doing on the page, it's just their amount to keep a lot of plates spinning in the air. You know, it's not as glamorous as it looks. In fact, the more successful of an author you are, the less time you actually have to sit there and write. So, you know, if you are at a place right now where you have extensive hours devoted to perfecting your craft, that's actually a really beautiful place to be. And I know that all of us yearn to get acceptances and yeses and maybe an agent or a book deal, but it is worth savoring. It's a form of innocent childhood, this beautiful place where we're just writing for ourselves and defining our voices and not being asked to send like pre-publication email blasts to everyone we know, which is, you know.
Right. Can you drum up interest so that they're ready? Like, but I'm finishing chapter 7. Yeah. Anyway, like, well, it's a good pivot. Let's, as a follow-up, let's talk about your latest book. Okay, I'm gonna hold it up again. The Year of the Horses. It's billed as a memoir. It's freaking piercing. And it's so much more. It's history, it's perspective, it's like a siren call to women and feminists and families and dads. And it's a view into our connection with animals. So can you talk about the makeup of this book and just
sure. So the Year of the Horses, it really takes place over more a year and a half. I'm 44 now. It opens when I'm 38. My daughter's just turned 2, and I'm in the throes of, you know, a really extended nervous breakdown. So I've struggled with chronic insomnia my whole life. And I reached a point, again, around age 37, 38, where I just stopped sleeping for months. No therapy, no pills, nothing was even Ambien. Like I could not sleep. Something crazy was happening with my body, and started dropping tons of weight. I developed IBS. I couldn't drive. I was having hallucinations. And I was also just having a lot of depression and anxiety because that was 2015. I was convinced Trump was going to win. My parents are Southern conservative. You know, I saw the writing on the wall. And up here in Connecticut, where I live, all of my leftist friends were like, "You're crazy." Anyway, I was obsessed with gun violence. Was sure that it was, and I mean, I remained obsessed with gun violence. I remain convinced that it's going to hit, you know, at any time. And but was really unraveling. And in the book, I tried many different modalities, talk therapy, all sorts of things. And the only thing that brought me back to sanity, because I was losing my mind. If you don't sleep for that long, you do lose your mind, was scheduling a horseback lesson. And so the book is really about nonverbal communication with animals, the healing potential of animals, and notably horses, and then the very powerful and special connection that women and horses have had over time, and the patriarchy's attempts to tame both parties. And it's a book that I really did want to write a memoir. I've written a lot of personal essays, but I have a very private family, especially my dad and stepmom, who have stopped speaking to me in the past for just little essays I wrote. So I was really in no rush to write a memoir. They're all still living. So I tried it as a novel, put it away. I had tried it in many different forms. And it was around 2017 I wrote it as an op-ed for the New York Times. By that point, I had gone full, hog with the horses and started to learn polo, the equestrian sport of polo with the mallet and everything, which was a rather crazy move because I'm a fearful person. I'm not really athletic. And here I was, trying to learn America's most dangerous, one of the most dangerous sports in the world. And I kind of wrote about how conquering my fears on horseback gave me back my identity as myself and not like a mother or an author or a wife, and it was the correspondence to that published essay that gave me, I guess, courage to one day try it again as a memoir, because a lot of people wrote and said, like, I don't care about horses, I don't know about horses, but you're inspiring me to get back in the pool or to put my ballet shoes on again, even though I'm 60, and but I wasn't well yet. I was still struggling with mental health. So I sat on it. And then it was really during the pandemic, actually, where I was sleeping really well during the pandemic because I just had less on my plate, and got back to a place of kind of mental clarity where I could try this again. And what it ended up looking like, I'm a big advocate for doing whatever you can to find the best editor for your project. And if you can manage to not always chase the money. So my third book, Costa Alegre, is with my first two books are with the big guys, Penguin Random House. But then my third book, I pivoted toward the indies. I worked with the incredible Maisie Cochran at Tin House. And I said to my agent, I'm very close to my agent, and I said, poor woman, she follows me over all these different genres and from little houses to big houses. And I said, I just don't think that I can do this book without Maisie. I just loved working with her. And my agent, Rebecca, said, well, you're not going to get any money. You're going to get so little money. And I said, yeah, but I know she can help me get this book to what it needs to be. And it was just an incredible collaboration because Maisie, unlike myself, I was born in Greenwich, Connecticut, like I said, private school, lots of privilege. My editor grew up in rural, impoverished Arkansas, and she hates horses. She has a very negative connotations with horses, and it made us just the perfect duo to write this together. And she really, I'm no fool. Like, I work in marketing, and I was like, what are we going to do with this white lady horse memoir, that's going to come out at not a very receptive time. And the first draft, she was like, what are you doing here? Like, you're apologizing for your upbringing. You're just icking around all this stuff. And she's like, you grew up rich, living in some McMansion castle in Greenwich, Connecticut. Show us that stuff. That was your child. You had a great, show it to us. You don't have to judge. The reader can decide. And it was just a beautiful editorial partnership. I'm really proud of what we achieved together. So that's sort of how the memoir came about. I sold it based on a pretty terrible draft, and then resuscitated it through really an hour-long conversation with her. Once I knew that she was going to work on it with me and that they had acquired it, it gave me the confidence I needed to just say, okay, I'm doing this. I'm writing a memoir.
First of all, I'm struck by how many times you have disparaged your own writing, and I think we need to work on that.
No, it's not. It's realistic. It wasn't a good first draft.
I know. I'm sure it
really wasn't. My first drafts are not. I mean, the writing obviously shows promise, but they go completely off the rails. Have a hard time with plot. I go on digressions. All the things that we all do. Nobody out there. I mean, I read some drafts of, people with the big money, the big book deals, and their first drafts are hot messes. The only time I came out the gate with an impeccable draft was this book. This book came to me like a fever dream. It's also written in a more experimental and artistic manner, so it makes sense that it would come out that way. All the other books, hard labor, thinking, all the things that you all are doing now, still to dialogue. Like, it's not, writing comes naturally to me, but writing for publication, where it really needs to be an impeccable form and meet the reader halfway, like it's hard. It's still hard. It becomes harder and harder because every book behind me, there's expectations. I'm trying to work on something now. I'm trying to write a mystery. It's just awful. I have a meeting with my agent next week about my pages, and she's going to say, burn them. It's not, it'll get good.
Generous and compassionate.
It'll get good, but my first drafts are not good. And this was not a good first draft. I'm very honest with myself about my writing. I know that my finish, if I really stick to it, I know I'll put out something good, and I'm lucky enough that probably an editor will buy it, but it's not easy.
It's not easy. But before we go forward, to everyone here who's writing cross genre or writing for the first time or writing for the 10th year or the 30th year, writing's a process, and Courtney is banging that drum. She did just hold up Costa Alegre. If you can hold that up. We're doing book giveaways today, people. So whoever can put in the chat right this second which era this book is about. Yes, the book. No peeking.
It's so fun.
I know, right?
I hope you like the book, whoever.
Well, I'm sure they will. And so let's talk about writing cross genre, because it seems like you are picking genres out of a hat and then going like, I'll try mystery. So I didn't say decade, I said heiress, but did my Maryland accent?
It sounded like era, yeah.
Oh, it didn't, I didn't mean era. It was I slipped in.
I think Rachel nailed it, but I'm just.
Rachel! Rachel, my friend. Deets. I will send you the book and my favorite candy.
I love that's so great.
No, right? So let's talk about cross genre.
Yeah.
Because you're like, hey, I'm doing it.
Yeah. Okay, so just to recap, my first book, I'm Having So Much Fun Here Without You, is it's a literary rom-com, takes place in Paris. This is my biggest bestseller to date. Paris, romance. Okay, and then second is another novel, but it has some speculative content. You could still say it's a literary rom-com, but it does have kind of speculative stuff going on. This is historical fiction. So we had a couple people who were right. It's right before World War II, takes place in rural Mexico, written in a very different tone of voice. It's written as a diary. It has illustrations, which basically made it impossible for me to work with Penguin Random House again, because they were like, an illustrated adult literary fiction novel.
Confusing.
Never
seen it before.
And then publishing guidebook. So this is reported nonfiction. I did over 200 interviews to write this, and lots of like social media forum stuff. So it is reported nonfiction. And then, hybrid. Oh, sorry, I'm eating my earbuds. Hybrid or memoir, or sometimes people say memoir plus, because you get a little bonus info. You learn about the game of polo, you learn about horses, and you learn about women's relationship with horses through history. So those are the different genres. So I'll tell you something right now. My agent's always saying I'm making it very hard for myself to earn a regular income, because it's easier if you look at Colleen Hoover again, right? If you can come out the gate with a gig or a beat that you always write about, like Leanne Moriarty has a very specific way she writes. Jonathan Franzen, maybe one day he'll come out with a memoir. He does write nonfiction, but his novels are all sort of doing the same things. Emma Straub, right? Britt Bennett, with Britt Bennett, you're going to get this expansive, sensual, totally absorbing fiction. She doesn't do satire. She doesn't do corporate culture stuff, right? Or hasn't to date. So the fact that I jump around so much, number one, it means I have quite a few different publishers, because like my publisher who did my first two books doesn't do nonfiction. So she, even if she wanted to, she couldn't have done my third and fifth book. And you know, I just have a lot of different publishers. So when I go to do a book event, I have to call up like 5 different imprints to get my books to, everything becomes a little bit more complicated. And then regarding my readership, you know, it's just a little harder for people to, I see a through line, and a lot of people see through line in everything I do. I always write with humor, but it's not as obvious as like, oh, this summer I want an Emma Straub book. You know, Emma Straub always does this kind of thing. That's what I want. And I'm very fortunate in that my agent stuck with me through all these different pivots. A lot of agents won't. You know, the minute I went to historical fiction or decided I wanted to go with the indies, there's a lot of agents that would have said, I'm just not following you there. But I've got a ride or die agent. Her only request to me has been to not do a children's book. I told her that I wanted to try erotica at some point, and she said absolutely, but she doesn't want to see any children's books if she doesn't know that world. So that's that. So if you like writing the same kind of thing, that's actually going to be a benefit for you. But if you don't, that's okay. You just have to, you know, you'll find your way. But yeah, that's my circuitous path.
Well, yeah, that's it's super helpful. Can you share the name of your agent, since you mentioned her?
Well, you can, but I wouldn't recommend querying her right now because she's completely overloaded. But it's Rebecca Gradinger at Fletcher & Co.
Okay, so everybody heard that. And can you hold up Touch again?
Yes. Oh, this is the hardcover. The paperback looks a lot different because we had to make it the colors of Target. Target, the store, has very specific colors they want on books, and so a lot of the big publishers coordinate their paperbacks to make it into Target. So go out and get the paperback if you want.
They get they get approval for the shelf. Whoever puts the occupation of the protagonist of Touch in the chat wins the chat.
Oh,
So
I love this.
It's a pop quiz, people. And P.S. Courtney's website is in the chat, so you can peek. It's cool.
This book, I would just love to say, if anyone's looking for a really good read that talks about intimacy and lack of intimacy in a really positive way, I'll give this book a chance, please. This book was supposed to be like a huge book for me, and it came out right after Trump was elected. And it was supposed to be a movie. I was writing the script, and that whole thing fell apart because of COVID. And this book is literally about a time, it came out in 2017, but it's about a time during which no one's touching. And you'd think that my publisher would have promoted it during COVID, but the thing about the big publishers is they never support backlist. It's very weird. So this is a little bit of like my heartbreak book, where it has so much potential. So, you know, throw me a bone, give Touch a try. It would mean a tremendous amount to my heart.
Jane.
Jane, congratulations.
Congratulations, Jane. DM me.
I hope you like it.
I will send you Touch and my favorite Tic Tacs.
I love this. So fun.
All right, let's talk about memoir. Okay, so many writers in our community are writing memoir or fictionalized, whatever. I mean, they're writing essays, they're passionate about their topic, and they get crazy amounts of conflicting input. Write like a novelist, be careful, don't be careful, let it all out there, find your voice and your path, or maybe look at somebody else's voice and copy that.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, there's so little on what actually to do.
Okay.
What do you say to people who have a real story to tell?
So
can they work with you? Can they go to their cabins with you?
No, they can't come to the cabins because the cabins is not just for writers. It's my nonprofit collaborative arts retreat, and it's open to artists of all disciplines. But you can go to the cabins retreat
Okay, they can go to the cabins retreat
.com because
on your website.
we do have applications opening. What you can do is also go to my website under classes. I have a master class that you can watch in an hour and 15 minutes on memoir writing. It's super cheap. It's like $10 or something crazy. I didn't set the price, but the quality, priceless. And it will teach you what I'm about to say. This is, okay, there's two considerations. Are you publishing for cathartic reasons and potentially heading towards self-publication? And if you are, write it however the hell you want. Get a copy editor so you don't have egregious grammatical mistakes, but write that thing however you want. Throw in some recipes, photos, make it yours. If you are trying to write toward a book deal, there's one thing you need to do, and it is figure out what is in your book for a stranger. Not your sister, not Allison, not, a woman who's gone through the same thing as you. A total stranger for whom $27 on a hardback is a ton of money. What is in your book for them? What are they going to take away, learn, unlearn? I work all the time with writers on memoir, specifically their query packages. Why am I not getting responses from an agent? Why am I getting rejected everywhere? Partly the market is just really hard right now for memoir. Everyone's going to tell you it doesn't sell. They want memoirs by celebrities. They also want memoirs where terrible things have happened to people and they write it like a stand-up comedy show. Right. So like, I'm glad my mom is dead is a perfect example. Now I haven't read that book. I bet it's a great book, but the way it's pitched is like trauma, eating disorder, all this controlling mother, but ha 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 ha, right? Yeah. Fine. What does that mean for the other books that are not funny haha? Well, there needs to be something in it for a stranger. So that's how you get often what we call hybrid memoir. So, with I'm just trying to think of like braided narratives. So if you think of one of my favorite memoirs is Jen Shapland, Jen with two N, Jen Shapland's My Autobiography of Carson McCullers. That book is a hybrid project. It's like memoir biography, because what Jen does is she explores the year that she won a big prize and got to go live in the writer Carson McCullers' house to work on her thesis. And it so happened that prize hit at a time where she was starting to think that she was gay. And as she lived in Carson McCullers' house, she started to read through all of her McCullers' correspondence and thought like, shit, McCullers was also gay, was sort of a thwarted lesbian. And so it's a book where she's outing both the subject of this like dissertation and herself. Another book that does this like so well that I don't even know how Alex had the power to write this, but a friend of mine, Alex Marzano-Lesnevich, they go by they, them, The Fact of a Body. This is incredible memoir. It took Alex well over a decade to write. They did not pull this out of their back pocket. And it starts, again, it's really important to start somewhere that's not you finding the net. We got to start in scene. And it starts when Alex was a lawyer on a, what do you call it? Oh my God, my brain is a little fried. That
sabbatical?
No. A case where someone was on death row.
A capital case.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. And that person had been charged with pedophilia, right? And Alex, who is against the death penalty, has always thought of themselves as someone against the death penalty, in the book starts to remember and revisit their own sexual trauma as a child. And they find that, in fact, they're unable to, they want the death penalty for this person, and they explore incredibly charged, difficult realizations and emotions, and at the same time it's true crime because you're visiting this story. It is an amazing book. So those are kind of two standout examples. But even in my book, you know, some people might come for the horses and they stay for the personal journey back to mental health. Some people might come for the siren call to feminism and self-celebration. And then they stay because they're actually learning a lot about history. But, you know, you're going to have a really hard time getting a book deal if your book just is pages and pages and pages about the really tough thing that happened to you one time. There needs to be a quest in the present narrative, which won't be your present because it's already happened, but it needs to read like the present to the reader. So this book, even though it's in my past, I get tons of mail where people say, my gosh, I hope you're okay. I'm so sad to hear you're struggling, because it feels that real and current to them. So in my class, again, if you go to courtneymaum.com classes, scroll to the memoir class, I teach in a really pragmatic, easy to learn way, using a 3-act structure and a double timeline. And the double timeline is, one is going to be hyper personal to yourself, and the other timeline is going to be incredibly universal, the thing that's going to make, you know, the book sell for anyone. So like,
I put the link for
oh, thank you.
I put the link every time you mention something, Courtney, from your website.
Thank you. Yeah, and you play a game with yourself. Look at like the memoirs that everyone thinks of, right? Like Cheryl Strayed's Wild. Okay, super personal. She decides to hike the Pacific Northwest Trail. Not something I'm going to do, but wow, amazing for her. But what was the catalyst? The death of her mom, right? If I'm remembering correctly. So grief, loss, those are universal things. I don't care where you come from, what your background is. Everyone has or will experience grief and loss. Mary Carr, another example, so many best-selling memoirs, right? She's got all sorts of stuff going on, but the universal problem is alcoholism in a lot of those books. Alcoholism. Lots of people can't swing a cat without hitting someone in America with substance abuse issues. So make sure that you have something universal in your book, so that when the agent's like, this sounds like it was very important for you to write, but why would a stranger want to read this? You do need to have an answer to that, unfortunately. And it's not easy.
I'm going to interrupt you because I know people want to ask questions, and we're not going to get to the whole 4 questions that I wanted to ask you because you're so freaking smart. Listen, Bill, she's so smart. And if you can tell me in the chat who the publisher of Before and After the Book Deal is, and P.S., you can use your notes.
Oh no, or maybe oh God, I don't know. Both Courtney and Brian were pretty quick on the draw.
You know what, Brian, you get one too. DM me.
Oh.
I already have it.
Oh, look at
it. Okay. Well, I'll send
Courtney's are the best. Courtney's are the best.
Yeah. Yeah. So DM me your deets, and you get the really, really good.
This is so fun.
Bubblegum.
You get a car, and you get a car.
You get a car. You get all my favorite things. Because I have a fetish for like old school candy. Like, they don't make great bubble yum anymore. Did you know that?
Of course I know that, because my 8-year-old is obsessed with bubble gum, and I'm like, what is this crap? You know.
I know. And the grape, you can get bubble yum in like cotton, whatever flavor. But the grape was really the cat's meow
thing. Yeah, no longer.
Okay.
Bye,
Let's go to questions, because let me just say this. This is a good time to tell everybody you can work with Courtney. Okay, so you have access to her genius, her memoir writing. She's talked about in the craft and queries. For sure, you're going to want to sign up for her Substack. This is where she sends you delicious, actionable, practical insight and guide and everything that you want to know. So sign up. I'm going to put the link.
I have a post coming on Friday about decoding your rejections that might be helpful.
Love the Substack.
Oh, thank you, Summer.
Love it. And so do it now before you forget. Just act on it now. You get news classes and retreats and where she's speaking, and you can show up and support her, and also get something for yourself, insight, and be part of the Literati Club. Also, make sure you connect with her on Instagram, because it is delish if you want courses and
A little bit of everything.
and all the places. I just, I preach that your bio has to be sticky, and it's not enough to say connect with her on Instagram. Like, for what? Like, for
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah.
And for writerly goodness.
Yeah.
You gotta tell us what we're gonna get, and I'm telling you what you're gonna get, because that's the way
It's very generous.
reached out to you on Instagram. Like, we don't know each other. Anyways, okay, let's go to questions, because everyone has them. And before we open to Q&A, just a little housekeeping, everybody. Our fall series of events it's not unraveling, it's rolling out. So October 6th at 8 p.m. Eastern, I'm in Eastern, but that is 5 p.m. Pacific. We're having a compassionate critique session. That means bring your page, your problem, your priority. We break into groups of 3, and you get real-time input from writers who care about what you're doing. It's intimate. We don't record it. And then you get to give input as well. Or you can just show up and give input. You don't have to share anything if you're like dipping your toe. It's cool. And then the 19th of October is the graduation party for the books in the class of 2022. And we are going to be celebrating. We're going to show all the books that have come out from this group in this year. And yeah, it's going to be awesome. And then more coming in November. You'll get all the details because you signed up for this, to register for the invite. Don't worry about that. But if you already signed up, since you already signed up to get the emails, you don't have to sign up again. So don't worry about that. Share with your friends. And okay, let's open up. If you have a question, you can put it in the comments, or you can raise your hand in the below, and then I will call you. So let me go back and forth. First of all, Courtney, the chat is lighting up. People really
I'll try to answer them as quickly as possible, because I know people have to go.
Yeah. So let's see.
Including myself, because I have to take my
I was a freelance writer. Deborah Lucas says, how did you like working with Tin House? I kind of feel like you
love them.
Loved them. Okay.
10/10, no notes.
No.
They're the best. They're fantastic.
Okay. Rachel Zemek I think she had to go. She's an incredible sort of founding member of this group. Her memoir's been turned down by major publishers, but hugely positive comments. And they seem afraid to put it on their list. And she's thinking about self or hybrid.
What's the topic?
Her topic is she's profoundly deaf. She was a deaf teacher in hearing school, but of deaf children. So it's part memoir, part what parents need to know.
Well, this sounds great. It sounds like she might have to go to a more academic press. So Rachel, I think she left the chat. So Rachel, you can email me at thequerydoula@gmail.com. Well, let's see if we can try to figure out what's going on.
Her writing is freaking beautiful, and she's been published in articles and essays recently in really high profile places.
Okay, well then there's something going on there that's either with the opening pages, or it's just being sent to the wrong place. And that's the kind of material that sometimes you can skip the agent and go straight to a smaller press or an independent an academic or university press without the agent. You won't get a lot of money, but you'll be handled correctly. So I have some ideas, but yeah, Rachel, come and find me.
All right, she will. Okay, Olivia says, if you are a foreigner, would you recommend getting published in your own country first
Hmm.
as opposed to the US? I think that the US market is bigger and has better reach.
Well, that's an interesting question. It sort of depends on what you're publishing. If you're publishing, for instance, like craft books are really popular in America. If I live in Afghanistan, maybe there's not quite the market. So perhaps I would try to get that published in America. So if the market demand is larger for your work in another country, perhaps try to get representation there. But you might have to think through finances a little bit. Like it can be complicated if you're earning royalties in a currency that's not yours. But that's maybe cart before the horse. So do research on, is that category of book not selling in your country? There are funny examples of, like, I have an American friend whose books really underperform here in the States, and he's a celebrity in France. Like, so generally, I think unless you live in a third world country, it's better, and I'm not making fun, I mean that, it's better to be established, start in your own country, and then try to do well through foreign sales, unless what you're trying to get published either puts you in danger in your own country or there's no market demand for it in the place you live.
Okay, I think that is super helpful. I'm trying to get through as many questions as I can. Going down.
Summer has her actual hand up.
Oh,
She's right next to me in the video, so I don't mean to race past people in the
okay. Summer, hello. I'm asking you to unmute.
You're on mute, Summer. Unmute.
Blah 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 blah. I'm so sorry. Thank you so much for doing this, and always thank you, Courtney and Allison. And anyway, maybe my question is not appropriate for this forum. I don't know, but it's more of like a memoir craft question. And if we need to take this outside of this, that's okay. But it was my memoir workshop group. We can't figure out, like, POV. Can we say stuff in our memoir that we know now that we didn't know?
100%. I do that all the time in this book, and it's one of the things that I feel proud of. So I did a lot of the fact checking myself with the people in the book and my family, and realized that I'd gotten a lot of the stuff wrong because I was really young when the book starts. I'm like 6 or 7, but I decided, well, the book there's 2 parts. There's me as like a 6 and 7-year-old and me as a 37-year-old. And I decided, and then of course there's the me who was writing it as a 40-something-year-old. So what you actually see me do is I held on to my memory the way it was as a child. And then I come back as an adult, not in the same chapter, often many chapters later, and reveal new information about it that I learned as an adult, such as, okay, so this, like my mom, when she got divorced, she went out and got a huge Harley Davidson motorcycle. And as a 10-year-old, I had all these thoughts and assumptions about why she did that. And I gave her an early draft of the manuscript. She read it and she was like, you didn't get it right about the purchase of and so you have the original chapter where I'm a, preteen, my reflections on the motorcycle. And then I come back as an older person and actually have the discussion about it with my mom. And I found that a very tender workaround. So, if you read it, you'll see how I do it, but you can absolutely say, in hindsight, or knowing what I know now, or writing from the 40-year-old that I am now, I realized that, and 100%. And I think you should do that, because no account is the right account. Your truth is not your sibling's truth, or your teacher's truth. So I think that's a way of honoring like different perspectives.
Thank you. Thanks, Summer, for asking that. Okay, listen, guys, we are coming up on the last giveaway because we've given away 4 now. So let me ask a really good question. What did Courtney say about I am having so much fun here without you? Was it her best-selling book, her worst-selling book, her hardest book to write? Put it in the chat.
Courtney's on it.
Uh,
Whoa, everyone,
Stephen.
good listeners.
Stephen logged in first 2 hours ago. Stephen, I see you, and I know you, and I appreciate it, and I love it. DM me your deets. Courtney, you're already DMing me your deets because I'm going to send you before and after the book deal. Or am I? No, I'm sending you.
No, I already have that one.
She has
I'm
it.
sending you the Year of the Horses.
Okay.
What?
Is it going to cure me of my fear of horses?
It probably will. You're going to want your own pony. You are.
Don't do it. Use someone else's. They're very expensive.
They are. You know what? Get a half lease.
Right.
I will never. I've had 2 horses. I've had Jolene and Charlie, and I'm telling you, it's not the cost of the horse.
Okay, Courtney's got a friend with a horse. She said, so good. That's good.
Yeah.
Use hers.
Yeah, half lease.
Or his. Or theirs.
Courtney, what before we have to end this call, is there anything you want to add? Anything that you want to hit on?
Well, I'm just grateful for everyone who's here. I think what you've created together is really beautiful. Friendship, mentorship, these things are so vital and will really help keep the love of your own process alive. And when you start to get rejections, which you will, we all do, I do too, turn to your community and bolster each other and really celebrate, the milestones. Just celebrate the good things about this, because, I think life is hard right now in general, but trying to make a creative life is like really hard. So, be there for each other. And I'm just so grateful that you spent all this time with me. And, oh, if you like my books, you can definitely share that information on Amazon and Goodreads. If you don't, say nothing. Better.
Yeah, no, we have a rule about that. I've done a webinar about that too. Of we really in the group, we want people to review each other, but in a community where we're friendly, your 3-star review is not welcome.
Well, yeah, and you don't need to tag, like a lot of times people tag me on negative or mixed reviews. Like I don't need to know.
No,
that's fine. Thank you very much for your support and getting the book however you got it. But if you less than loved it, that's fine. Don't tag me. Right. I don't need to know.
Right. That's for people who don't know you, but now that we know you,
in general with any author though, you're not going to win them over by saying like this book was, I don't know, 300 pages.
I didn't love the cover.
I didn't love the cover.
I didn't love it.
That's not like, we don't open conversations that way. So don't do it virtually. But I know that no one here is doing that. So that's great. Keep on not doing that. But yeah, I now have to go to a scarecrow festival with my daughter, which I don't like scarecrows. So, think of me in the coming hour.
I get to go pick up my daughter from soccer. Hey, everybody, thanks you so much for showing up for yourself, for showing up for the community, for always having each other's backs. The community works because of you. If you're not getting what you need, start asking for what you need. It's rule number 1.
And if you sign up for my Substack, I know a lot of people didn't get their questions answered. You do have to be a paid subscriber, but I promise you it's worth it because I send like 2 posts a week with really in-depth insider info. And then you can comment and just post your question there and I will get to it in due time.
And you actually do query.
I query, I do open calls. I'll be like, send me your artist statement, send me your book title, send me a chapter that's not working, and we live critique them. So it's a fun, I think of it as a community more than a newsletter. It's like an active growing thing. Where do we sign up? It's a courtneymaum.substack.com, or it's on my website.
It's there's a big button on the website that says sign up for, sign up for it. So yes, there it is.
It's called Before and After the Book Deal. So you'll find it, but it is on my website. All right, I have to go to the Scarecrow Fest. Thank you so much for having me, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Good luck with your writing.
Everybody, see you in 2 weeks.